The limits should be to protect humans while allowing full and open development of commercial uses. Like what Palantir is doing with establishing a global surveillance state. Greetings to my guys, gals, and non binary pals. My name is Jerry. I left MAGA, and I am bringing you another episode of news from the state of Missouri. We've had some drama going on around here. That whole gerrymandering thing. We've got several tabs that are lined up that are all linked in this story. This story will be linked in the description below. But let's go over here and take a look at this article from the Missouri Independent. Uncertain congressional map hangs over Missouri's crowded 5th District GOP primary. 6 candidates are running in a district redrawn to favor Republicans, but its boundaries could change after August 4th primary. What complications could possibly come from this? This case has been being litigated in court for ever since the whole idea was brought into play. So here's our candidates. The Republican nomination in Missouri's 5th congressional district could, in the weeks after the August 4 primary, become a prize not worth having. 6 candidates are competing for the nomination in a district Republican lawmakers redrew last year at President Donald Trump's urging to give their party an advantage over incumbent Democrat U.S. Representative Emanuel Cleaver. Now, let's take a quick look at these two articles because we'll see there's a link here and a link here. So, Missouri lawmakers passed gerrymandered congressional map initiative petition limits. So, this is back in September of 2025. So, that's the first link. And then the second link, President Trump's urging, is this story here. After hearing from Trump, Missouri GOP muscled gerrymandered map forward in state Senate. So that was not a lot of fun to watch happen. It was quite frustrating. Back to this article, and we'll get to that map in a moment. But the Secretary of State, Denny Hoskins, is expected to decide on primary day whether a referendum petition challenging the map has enough valid signatures. If he certifies it, the courts could be asked to decide whether the new boundaries were ever legally in effect and which map must be used for the November 3 general election. See, this is the question that's been being asked ever since this whole new map thing was considered, was brought to the table. You remember Texas and California, the old gerrymandering battle that they had? Yeah, we got swept up into it. Anyway, continuing with the article. Under the new map, the Republican nominee would compete in a 14-county district stretching from Kansas City through rural areas to reliably support the GOP. Under the previous boundaries, the contest would be decided in Kansas City and portions of Jackson and Clay counties, where Cleaver would be overwhelmingly favored to win a 12th term. So, and I believe in term limits. So what we're talking about here is, up here is the St. Louis map. This is where I live. And then this is the Kansas City detail. Now, this area right here, if I remember right, is what got added to this whole huge district here. Why did they need this little tidbit here other than the concentration of black population there? It's to dilute the vote of the Kansas City residents. Back to the article, since winning the election in 2004, with 55% of the vote, Cleaver has fallen short of a majority only twice and not since 2014. The possibility that the district could change after the primary has not discouraged political spending. Outside groups have poured almost $2.8 million into the contest, more than 5 times what the 6 candidates combined have reported raising. but all of it has focus on two candidates. Taylor Burks of Boone County, that's Columbia, Missouri, and the county that Columbia, Missouri is in, and State Senator Rick Batron of Cass County. The concentration of money has left the other four candidates, Micah Beebe, Brett Hoffmeyer, Brad Patty, and Burton Knox, trying to convince voters that the primary has not already become a two-person race. And that becomes a real problem whenever you got that much money going in. It may muscle out a better candidate. Now, I'm not saying that I'm in favor of Republicans, but this is the fight that they're having. So, continuing with the article, quoting Hoffmeyer, I went into this race realizing that I was running against some people that had done this before, and that they were probably going to get a lot of endorsements. Brayton is certain the map used on primary day will be the one electing the next 5th District representative in November, arguing that a referendum on the congressional map violates the federal Constitution. No, because this gerrymandering wasn't supposed to happen in the middle of the decade, you dingbats. Anyway, which makes it unconstitutional from the get-go. Anyway, continuing with the article, quote, the sole authority is given only and solely to the legislature and the legislature alone, end quote, he said, he being Brayton. Yeah, that's the last person referenced. Continuing with, quote, this isn't a regular statute on which referendum is applicable, and I've said that from the onset, end quote. The map shouldn't have been changed in the first place. Anyway, continuing with the article, Burks said that Burks said that while a referendum may occur, he expects the courts will keep the districts in place for November. Quote, both the Attorney General and Secretary of State have very clearly said that this is the map that governs this cycle. Burks said, what happens in the referendum will be decided by voters if the Secretary of State puts it on the ballot, end quote. There have been issues that we've had in the state of Missouri that the voters voted in favor of, and then our current Republican administration, Mike Keogh's administration, turned around and said, nah, that's not really what you wanted. It happened on the abortion rights protection thing. Anyway, a two-candidate advertising war. There's a little love lost between the two candidates benefiting from and enduring $1 million advertising campaigns. For Burks, Brayton is defined by his membership in a disruptive faction of the Republicans in the Missouri Senate he believes are more interested in garnering headlines than moving the state forward. Okay, I can believe that. Quote, Senator Brayton has a long track record of being a bomb thrower and a disruptor in the state legislature, Burks said, continuing, Club for Growth apparently is seeking that and trying to buy this seat for him, which my campaign is going to do everything we can to stop, end quote. I am glad, Mr. Burks, that you are challenging the Club for Growth because they are, anyway. Let's see what else they had to say here before I jump off into the Club for Growth. Club for Growth is the funding source behind more than $1.3 million being spent by Win It Backpack, airing positive ads painting Brayton as a MAGA Marine who will fight for Trump's agenda. A MAGA Marine? Oh, okay. So I don't really need to say much more about Club for Growth, do I? A negative ad funded by Club for Growth accuses Burks of encouraging woke activities at Truman State University, where he serves on the board of governors. It cites a campus resource center with clothing available to students who are transitioning their gender. Oh my goodness! So they're going on an attack against somebody who's willing to help somebody else grow. Oh, all right. Well, quote, I obviously have no control over the legal activities of student groups, end quote, Burke said, continuing, quote, and no university funds were used for that. So it didn't even come before the board. It is silly. It is a silly, desperate, out of state attack ad, end quote. I'm okay. I'll give you that, Mr. Burks. All right. Conservatives for American Excellence, a super PAC backing Burks, has responded with ads attacking Brayton over votes he cast in the Missouri Senate. Oh, this is like drama. This is crazy drama, but this is Republican on Republican drama. One ad says Brayton helped sex offenders get removed from the state registry because he voted for a 2018 bill that changed how long some offenders must remain registered. The ad also says he voted against child abuse prevention funding. That claim was based on Brayton joining other members of the conservative caucus in opposing an $853 million supplemental spending bill that included about $519 million. I'm sorry, $519,000 for 2 child abuse programs. Wait, what? That's just sick. Quote, Rick Brayton voted to make it possible for sex offenders to be removed from registries. Brayton also voted against funding for child abuse prevention programs. End quote. The ad states, continuing, quote, if Rick Brayton won't vote to protect children, then you can't vote for him. End quote. You know what? That if this is true about Brayton, I think that's a brilliance. I think that's a brilliant ad. Yeah. I'm not saying that. Anyway, yeah. Republican on Republican drama. All right. So despite the attacks, Brayton believes the race is trending his way. He has major endorsements, including Governor Mike Kehoe, the car salesman, and Missouri Right to Life, he noted. Oh, good grief. We'll see if they say something about Missouri Right to Life. If not, I'll see about doing a standalone piece to profile them. So back to the article. Quote, plus having the, hang on a second. Let me go ahead and make this a quick thing real fast. New window. This is basically doing like a live stream right now. All right, folks. Sorry about the hesitation, but, and I meant to, there we go. All right, so I've got that queued up. All right, back to the article. Quote, plus having the track record, the voting record is resonating with people that are tired of people talking the talk and not walking the walk, end quote, Brayton said. Burks, a commander in the Naval Reserve and chief executive of the commercial landscaping company Rost Inc., has financed much of his campaign himself, lending $900,000 and raising about $250,000 from donors. Brayton, a two-term state senator who previously held office as a state representative and Cass County auditor, has raised around $312,000. Hoffmeyer, a one-time staff member for U.S. Senator John Ashcroft, and Kit Bond, who now works in commercial real estate, loaned his campaign $275,000 and raised about $50,000 more. All right. So this shit's real personal for me right here because Kit Bond's name comes up. Kit Bond is why my folks pulled me into the Republican Party when I was only 8 years old back in 1972. It's why I was in MAGA until or left MAGA at the age of 58. All right, back to the article. So, that was a little emotion. That was mentally activating. So, continuing with the article, Bibi, a commercial real estate investment specialist, raised less than $5,000. Patty, a retired Army Master Sergeant currently pursuing a graduate degree in public administration, raised 770. $7,774 through June 31st. He said the loans illustrate the corrupting influence of campaign money because candidates who lend their campaign who lend their campaigns heavily may later rely on donations to repay them. Yeah, see that. Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Mr. Patty. This job pays $174,000. It's a 2-year term. End quote. Patty said. So, who's going to pay the extra money back? End quote. Patty also said Brayton should be disqualified from the minds of voters because he helped create a district he does not live in and is now seeking to represent. Oh, that is some shady business right there. See, I'm not in on the deep details on this story because I've been watching a bunch of this MAGA stuff dropping out, this whole Trump thing, but I'm trying to redirect my efforts. Back to the article. Quote, so you vote for the map as a state senator, and then you run in it, and you don't live in the district, Patty said. Continuing, why wouldn't you run in your own district? Well, it's because you lost to Mark Alford and you know you can't win. End quote. Wow. So redraw the map so you can win. Sounds like cheating to me. Okay, so back to the article. Voters size up the field. At a recent Lincoln Days event in Saline County, 5 of the 6 candidates were on hand, but the program didn't give any of them time for a quick stump speech. That left them, quick one-on-one efforts at campaigning. Many Republicans stopped after they shook hands with candidates on their way to the dinner buffet that they need to know more about the candidates before they make a choice. Quote, them showing up here in such a small community says a lot. That they want to make change, end quote, said Kaylee Kipping, whose Saline County home is newly in the 5th District. She said she's leaning towards Burks because he is a conservative family man. Conservative family man. I would not use that as a qualifier these days. Elon Musk, Donald Trump. Anyway, back to the article. Wayne Human of Saline County said he knows a little bit about the candidates, but not enough to decide. He wants a candidate committed to passing the SAVE Act pushed by Donald Trump. Let's see. I must have missed a link here. Oh, Missouri set to enact gerrymandered map despite 300,000 signatures for a repeal referendum. So, yeah, we didn't want to gerrymander, but they gerrymandered it anyway. And then, yeah, there's this whole SAVE Act thing. It's harder for married women to vote. So there's that. We'll come back to that link in a minute. Quote, we don't need illegals coming in and voting and running our country, unquote. Human said, that doesn't happen, people. It does not happen. Many did like the idea of gaining another Republican seat in the Missouri delegation. Yeah, many of them did. Continuing, it's a fantastic idea, said Roger Davenport of Marshall, Missouri. Continuing, saying, it has to reflect the voters of the district. what's happening across the United States. That's a fantastic idea. It has to reflect the voters of the district, what's happening across the United States. I'm sorry, that just seems like a disjointed statement. All right, so what are the issues? There is little daylight among the five candidates interviewed by the Independent on the Republican Party's core issues. All support Trump's border policies, oppose abortion, and support gun rights. The differences are largely one of emphasis, experience, and temperament. Burke's television ads, for example, focus on China. He wants to stop China from buying Missouri farmland, he said. To do so, he said in one broadcast ad, China will have to pry the land from my cold, dead hands. Let's see. That harkens me back to the days when I was an active NRA member. Charlton Heston. If you don't know, you don't know. If you know, good for. I don't know. Brayton said his stump speech points out the dangers he sees if Democrats regain control of Congress. What? Accountability of criminals and crooks? Impeachments where they are needed? Removal from office where needed? Okay, so back to this article. Quote, we now have a party that's literally electing devout communists, outspoken devout communists. Some of these Democrats are even happy 9/11 occurred and thought we deserved it, end quote, Brayton said. Continuing, they want to see it toppled and think America is disgusting and disgraceful. I think we've got to have a representation of people who love America. It will uphold its values and combat the crazy left that literally wants to see its destruction, end quote. Dude, Mr. Brayton. I would love, Bratton maybe? Is that how you spell it? Bratton? I don't know. I'd love to sit down and have a talk with you as a former MAGA to, you're obviously MAGA. I would love to talk to you about how you're so wrong in so many aspects there. And if this is a direct quote, you're speaking with some pretty staunch confidence on some really bad talking points. You're not even close to the truth on these things. So I left MAGA because I saw what Trump and his administration are doing to the country, and I see what this Republican administration and the Parson administration were doing beforehand. Anyway, I've been riding this train for a while, bro. So back to the article. Beebe places greater emphasis on federal spending and the national debt. Quote, I'm not so naive to think that I'm going to show up in Congress and all of a sudden the problems are going to be fixed, end quote, he said. Hoffmeyer said he wants to work on solving rural health care needs. Right now, there are heavy restrictions on doctors owning hospitals. If that were changed, he said, there would be more interest for physicians to serve rural areas. And he's absolutely correct about that part. There's that link right there, doctors owning hospitals. It leads to this link right here at cms.gov. And I have not looked into it. It's legalese, but feel free to follow that link. I just wanted to show you where it goes. I listened to a story earlier today, or maybe it was last night, about a doctor that wanted to help out a crisis pregnancy center, and it was this pregnancy center was run by some of this guy's this Brayton kind of Christians, and they didn't want to take this doctor's help because he didn't believe the same way. He had the skills they needed, but they weren't willing to accept his help because he wasn't one of them. And that's kind of culty in the mindset. So back to the article. And it's so yeah, there's and never mind. Sorry, stop. there are doctors that are wanting to help the rural areas, and there are some rural areas that are just making it more complicated than it needs to be. All right, now back to the article. Quote, it's just kind of an antiquated law that there's that, let me try that again. Quote, it's just kind of an antiquated law that there's that really doesn't, well, that's there, that really doesn't need to be there anymore. I think there probably should have been a comma there. Anyway, so Mr. Hoffmeyer says that it's just an antiquated law that's there that really doesn't need to be there anymore. Okay, I'll agree with that. Every now and again, I can agree with somebody on a point even if I don't agree with their general ideology. So back to the article. Patty said he wants to cut spending and taxes. Quote, I'm all about reducing taxes and putting money, basically not talking too much money from the people because it was originally in their hands, he said. Let's see, I'm all about reducing taxes and putting money, basically not talking too much money from the people. I think that's something there. What? I think that's supposed to be I'm all about reducing taxes and putting money back in people's pockets. Basically, not talking too much money from the people, or not taking too much money from the people because it was originally theirs. Okay, so I think I untangled that. I'm not sure. Let me know. Back to the article. All 5 candidates interviewed supported Trump's decision to use military force against Iran, although Hoffmeyer criticized the administration's preparation and public messaging. Quote, what the president's been a little guilty of is that the messaging was not organized or well organized in order to do it, end quote, he said. So we're going back to Colin Powell with that little vial of, I'm wondering if it's even Peruvian flake, maybe, rather than because there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But I think he's trying to, um, Hoffmeyer was talking about Trump should have done better on manufacturing consent. It's all about mind control. So back to the article. The U.S.-Israeli relationship helped lead Trump to go to war, and the Israeli military actions in Lebanon and Gaza have soured some Americans on the Middle East ally. Period. You think? None of the candidates said they would reduce or curtail support for Israel. Burks, however, added that the U.S. must be ready to hold Israel accountable for how it uses the military aid. Well, then just stop giving them the aid and make them justify themselves before you give them any more instead of continuing. Oh my God. It's like giving a junkie, it's like giving a meth head an endless supply of meth and then wondering why he's still doing meth. Oh my God. Uh, uh, quote, the United States as an ally also has a role to work with Israel and say, quote, hey, what's proposal? What's the next best interest this partnership of this partner? Hey, what's proposal? What's in the best interest of this partnership overall? End quote. Perk said. I'm not sure that I don't know what he meant by that. I'm confused by that string of words. Continuing with the article, the next Congress will consider what, if anything, should be done to regulate development of artificial intelligence. And no, that's something we could do here and now, and it needs to be regulated heavily. And we need to put a moratorium on the development of AI data centers. What's so complicated about that? Back to the article. For Burks, the area to regulate is online interactions with children and national security. For Bratton, the limits should be to protect humans while allowing full and open development of commercial uses. Like what Palantir is doing with establishing a global surveillance state, or how Palantir helped fuel the events in Gaza by supplying the Israeli military an AI platform, a facial recognition AI platform to install on their killer drones. Um, Dude, come on now. Back to the article. Hoffmeyer said he learned the need for privacy protection when he returned from China after working as a higher education administrator. His devices were hacked, he said. Like that doesn't already happen with oh good grief. Um I, I, I've got that's a whole nother video. Back to the article. AI regulations should protect personal information and privacy, he said. Well, that too. Yes, that. Quote, we tend to just give up our privacy and our freedoms on the increasing basis or on an increasing basis without really thinking it through and just thinking everything is going to be okay. But what the public doesn't understand is that once you do that, you know it's too late, end quote, Hoffmeyer said. That's that's a rational thought. That's a very rational thought. But he could apply it a little bit better, I think. So continuing with the article, AI development needs data centers, and the candidates are hearing from vocal opponents of data center development. While they sympathize, they questioned whether it is a federal issue. Dude, if the states will take the step first, like a couple of other states have, I can't think off the top of my head. Didn't New York State put a moratorium on data centers, and there was another one before them. States can do this. We don't have to wait on the federal government to wait in. Just like the state by state thing on abortion, after Roe v. Wade got overturned, right? So yeah, you could make this decision. We could make this decision. We don't need to wait on the federal government because Project Stargate is not going to allow. The Trump administration wanted to pass into law a 10-year moratorium on the regulation of AI in the first place last year, dude. Anyway, back to the article. Congress should not be regulating data center site selection, Brattain said in his state Senate district. He said there are communities determined to keep them out and communities that will welcome them. Okay, so water usage, air pollution. I mean, data centers just don't need to be there. You can do model development on smaller scales. We don't have to be developing and saturating the system with the developing models. Oh, good grief. You tech pro lovers. You guys frustrate me sometimes. No, regularly. Not sometimes, regularly. So, back to the article. Found my place again. Quote, nobody wants a nuclear power plant right in their backyard. True. They don't want a coal-fired power plant in a residential community. True. End quote. Braden said, continuing, quote, in the same way, they don't want a big hyperscale data center which looks like a maximum security prison in a residential area. We understand it's just common sense on all sides, from the developers to the counties and to the state, as to where these things are going to be installed. Okay, hold up. Mr. Brayton, from what I have watched and the complaints that I have heard and the videos that I have seen shot in these areas, it's not just because it looks like a maximum security prison. The noise that comes from these places is freaking insane, and they're powering them with turbine generators, which have a really high pitched squeal. And there's all the cooling fans because it's using carbon chips for the data processing, silicon chips for the data processing, instead of investing that money into the development of quantum computing, which power to computation ratio is considerably more efficient, and you don't have nearly the heat loss, which would work in helping not heat up the environment any further. You've got these gas powered turbines that are just pumping heat into the environment. It's insane. They need to shut this shit down like last year. Where the hell was I? Back to the article. Farmers are reeling from a combined effect of low crop prices, high feed and fertilizer costs, and tariffs cutting off markets entirely. The system of farm supports, known as the Farm Bill, which also includes authorization of a nutrition assistance program, is 3 years late for renewal. All right, so there's a link there, and that'll bring you over to this 2026 Farm Bill's slow progress raises more concerns than aid for farmers. The money that's being poured into these data centers could save our agribusiness. I'm just saying. It doesn't need to be this complicated. All right, back to the article. And I'm not yeah, it looks like we're about to the end of it. Hoffmeyer said farm programs should prioritize making farms profitable. Agreed. The current programs for farmers who are enrolled put targets for subsidies on past prices and yields, regardless of the profitability of those levels. Right. There's farmers in the United States that are complaining about the cost of diesel fuel and the cost of fertilizer, and how the increased cost of input is not being seen reflected in the cost of or in the market. But that's just an inflationary thing. The cost of diesel is going up because of that war of choice over in the Middle East that Trump has decided to pick in the Hormuz Strait. So yeah, outside connectivity. I do have some problems with subsidies going into industries. I mean, so we got government cheese back in the Reagan administration, the dairy market industries. It would be better that if the farmers actually worked in markets or were allowed to work in markets that people actually wanted to buy and consume, right? So if you're subsidizing wheat fields that are growing GMO grains, or you're subsidizing corn crops that are actually going towards ethanol production instead of food, then yeah, I got issues with that. But if you're subsidizing a farm that's doing rotational farming, to where you have like 4 different crops and you rotate them around each field each year, and you have like maybe a fifth field that you allow to go fallow, so you got this full rotation. And there's a technique to sustainable farming that kept humans alive for a really long time. None of this needs to be this complicated. All right, I'm going to try to finish up this article. I've been rambling and ranting a lot here. All right, so more stable support is needed, he says, he being Hoffmeyer. Quote, those are not bad ideas, and those things didn't really ever cost us an enormous amount out of the federal budget, end quote, Hoffmeyer said. Patty said farmers should face market conditions. Okay, I can work with that. Patty sounded a little bit more like a libertarian. Quote, I personally stand for the principle of having the government being less and less involved, end quote, Patty said. So yeah, this Patty guy sounded a lot more like a libertarian, where Brayton is just straight up MAGA. Brayton said less regulation would ease the burden on farmers. How we got the glyphosate thing, right? Anyway, yeah, looks like, yeah, let's wrap this up. With little with little public polling, it is uncertain which candidate has the upper hand as early voting begins Tuesday. The only thing that would alter the outcome, candidates agreed, is if Trump endorses a candidate. Okay. Uh, yeah, that's not been working out so good lately, has it? So, yeah, that would alter the outcome. It might knock one of the candidates out of the race. Hoffmeyer, who went to Washington looking for support, said he doesn't expect the president to make a selection. Good. Fight it out, boys. Do it on your own. Anyway, closing out the article, quote, here's what they told me. They said that he will not endorse someone if it's right at the end, and we know for sure that that person is going to win, end quote, Hoffmeyer said. Quote, or continuing, otherwise, the only time he gets involved is when he's upset with someone who's an incumbent and he wants somebody to run against them. So let's see, what was that? Okay, so that wraps up that article. I'll have the link in the description. All those other links are listed in the article. Well, let's see. Who was it that there was two Joshes? Or no, two Erics. There were two Erics running for U.S. Senate in the state of Missouri back in 2022. There was Eric Greitens and Eric Schmidt. Eric Greitens, former governor, and Eric Schmidt, who was attorney general and a former member of Congress in the state. I think it was the House. It might have been the Senate, but anyway, he was in state Congress before he became the attorney general. And Trump's like, I endorse Eric, and I'm like, which Eric? Well, there was a bunch of scuttlebutt around Eric Greitens, and so of course we got Eric Schmidt. But Eric Schmidt's on APAC payroll. Eric Greitens apparently wasn't. I don't know. I'd have to look back on that. So yeah, that was a wild article. Things are crazy here in Missouri. We got some Republican on Republican drama because Trump wanted maps gerrymandered in their favor. And one of the things that is this confusing deal is that the overlap in those districts, and I think there was actually a possibility of the same district voting. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was all confusing. So we're gonna have to see how this all plays out. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate that. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do that. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to share this information with anybody that you think it might benefit. And yeah, take care of yourself so you can help take care of others. Drink plenty of fluids, get plenty of rest, and please remember, mental health matters.